Hello. Oh my gosh, last day of the CEO Mind Shift experience. We've been talking about the 4 keys that we need for a sustainable life and business that doesn't leave us by the wayside, right? And like I said, for everyone that's on live today, so glad if you've been catching the replay. Yay, you stay here for a minute. But those of you that are on live today, you get another name in the drawing for a goodie I'm going to talk about at the very, very end. So I will add your name at the end. I use a Riffle raffle app. So everything's above board. I'll show you the screen when we're done and we'll see what people are winning. I'll probably pick 2 or 3 people to win some goodies from me. I'm Suzanne Castle. I'm glad that you are taking time for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making it happen. Did you have an aha from yesterday? Right? First, we talked about what the CEO mind shift was out of employee to a CEO. On day 2, we started beginning to think about, what is sustainable self-care? How do we get back to that joy when we live in that CEO way of being in the world, right? Yesterday, we did some hot journaling, thinking about how we're going to put all these things together. And I told you today is all about fear. Today's all about fear. So I'm glad you're here. Hi, Megan. Nice to see you. Glad you're joining in today. Okay, so let's dive right in because fear, ugh, right? Is that what it makes you think of? The thing about living a CEO mind shift is that fear is part of an everyday existence, but you don't let it keep you stuck. So I'm curious if you begin to recognize yourself in any of these fears. What we're going to do today is we're going to figure out how to uncover our specific fears, what might be holding you back. I'm going to dig into a process in just a minute. But for now, I just want you to think about, do these fears resonate with me? You might just let me know in the chat along the way if you recognize yourself in any of them. Now, I'm only going to do a couple. I'm not going to do all of them, but these are some common fears that I see when people come towards me and work together. First one is fear of saying no. Anybody feeling me on that one? Usually this arises because you don't want to miss the next big opportunity. So you say yes to everything. I also see a lot of fear of making decisions. So when this happens, you procrastinate, right? You put them off. You get overwhelmed, right? You just keep researching because you're just afraid to make a decision. Anybody seeing themselves in that fear? There's also the fear of offending others. Really, this arises when business owners are afraid to write polarizing content or speak to one specific person because of this fear. So maybe that's a fear that you have, right? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. I also see a lot of fear of outsourcing, right? This really comes as scarcity. This is a larger scarcity issue. This also could be a fear of allowing control. So, especially when you're managing a team, you don't want to outsource if you're controlling everything. And usually that comes up because you feel like you don't have enough time to train someone. It seems too complicated, possibly, or maybe it's too expensive for you. Again, lack of resources, right? Which then leads me to financial fears. I know lots of people have financial fears. It's hard not to have financial fears. This usually shows up when you fear you won't make enough money or that you're going to lose it all if you do increase your income, or if you take this step, then what happens next? There's also some sustainability fear that once you reach a certain level, can you sustain that and keep moving? A lot of this is kind of living inside financial fears. And finally, there's a fear of success. So that's one that people think that they don't have, but this shows up when maybe you don't know if you're capable of handling more clients. You're not really sure that you can handle more responsibility. If you're not really sure about scaling, so you just stay where you are, you diminish yourself and your power. That's a fear of success right there. And the list of fears, of course, they go on and on and on. But can you relate to any of these? If so, let me know if there's one that's popping up for you. What is a fear that already you know that you have? Let me know. Let me check the comments real quick, see what we've got going on. Hi, Kathleen. I'm glad that you're here. She's done a lot of fear work with me. I'm glad that you're here. So, what do we do when we see these fears arise? How do we tackle them? How do we think about things maybe a little bit differently? Kathleen, thank you. Fear of success. Yeah, gosh, that shows up a lot for women. I don't see it as much with my men clients, but definitely see it among women. So let's talk about that, right? So what do we do? What do we do? The good news is there's an actual process that you can follow to help you. One, you got to uncover your fear so that then you can clear them away so that you can confidently step into that role of CEO of your life and your business your way. So Let's talk about these steps. You might want to grab a pen and jot some of these down or revisit this video after the fact. So the first one is that we actually want to start by defining it. Now, this may seem basic, but this is a very important aspect we don't want to let go of. So you might pull out a journal, a piece of paper. You might just like give you your phone, right? And answer this question. What am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? So what am I afraid of when it comes to growing or running my business as the leader? What am I afraid of when I take this next step? You really need to start by actually defining your fear. It all starts there. And what you'll want to do is write freestyle, free flow, maybe 10 minutes, see what comes out. Like don't put it anywhere, don't categorize it, don't even judge, don't shame yourself, right? Just get it all down. And then you step back and you go, hey, did any of these ideas surprise me? If so, dig deeper, keep going, right? Keep journal. Keep up the journaling, keep up the writing until you're like, okay, yeah, I get this now. Like now I know what my fear is, right? Once you've done that, the next step that I would advocate for you is that you notice childhood patterns, right? So spend some time in your history, think back a little bit to your childhood. Do you think that anything you just wrote stemmed from an interaction you had as a kid, maybe with adults or your parents? Maybe you can think of a specific experience that might have formed that fear. It's really and truly not about placing blame here. It's really acknowledging that some fears are really deeply held way down inside of us. And when you know that, here's the news about that. Those sometimes take longer to change. So we just want to note if this is a fear that we've brought into the world from our childhood, or if this is kind of a fear that's taken shape recently, right? And as you're journaling, as you're noticing these things, I encourage you to journal with feeling. So, what does this mean? Imagine how you'll feel when you see your life and your business starting to take shape. Get into that feeling space. Ask yourself, do I have the desire to eliminate these fears now that I know what these are? Do I really want to change myself to grow differently, or am I okay with these fears? It's really important to know that because tackling fear takes a lot of energy. Okay. And then maybe ask yourself, so what do I hope to accomplish this month, 3 months, this quarter, next year? What do I hope to accomplish? Now, these could be specific business milestones, but they also might be a more general description of the vision that you're trying to create for your life, right? It doesn't just have to be business or life. So, what are you hoping to accomplish? This is a really great starting point, and I always like to end with some positive thoughts in my journal so that what my brain is left with, you know me well, is at the end of it, right? So if we focus on just the negative, what the fear brought up for us, right, that can get squishy, can be an emotional process. I get that. It can weigh on you, which can be detrimental, especially if you're an empath, emotional person. So what you want to do is then end and go, wow, aren't I excited? I got my fears down. Wow, I have a lot of fear. Isn't that great? I've got a lot of work to do. Like you just really want to reframe that before you do the next part, the next step. Okay. And even if you don't care for writing, please know that really this is not about that. It's about organizing your thoughts, getting it out from a cellular level, getting it out on paper, right? So we can separate the emotion out and we can really look at fear in future, right? Begin to gain some clarity about what we're seeing and maybe some roadblocks because fear will always put up a giant roadblock in your path. Okay. We want to do this on a regular basis. This isn't I'm going to do this after Suzanne's class today and never do it again. Fear pops up a lot, and it pops up a lot, especially when we're doing change dynamic work. So then what do we do? Okay, you've got all this down. We want to keep moving. We want to keep shaking. So then we want to get really and truly specific. What does this mean? Well, the next step is really identifying the fear is to go back now, we read what you wrote, and then get clear about what you're really and truly and actually afraid of so that you can create a short list. Okay. Because we need that short list to understand where we want to begin to work. Okay. So right now, that list that you created, it might seem really long, it might seem overwhelming. And you and I both know that you'll stall out before you even begin to tackle your fears if it looks too big and scary. So now's the time to really get specific. So what you'll want to do is ask yourself some questions like this. Again, the pattern, right? Ask the pattern question. Am I noticing a pattern, right? Do I have a certain fear and it shows up again and again and again? Or are all of my fears really scarcity related? Or all of my fears money related, right? Begin to notice how they're similar. Maybe you have an overarching fear, right? For example, let's say that you wrote down, I have a fear of going live on Facebook. I have a fear of creating YouTube videos. I have a fear of my image going out in the world. I don't like to have pictures of myself. It kind of scares me a little bit. All of that kind of goes together in putting yourself out publicly in a live way. Do you see? So begin to group these together. And as you hone in, keep creating that list, right? You want to go through each fear on the list and say, is this a larger, multifaceted fear, like scarcity? Or is this a fear that can really be broken up into smaller parts? Right? Easily you see that. Or maybe even it's something even more specific, which honestly, those are the easier to tackle first. When you begin to think about classifying your fear, it really will help you tackle your fear. It lets you get a handle on the true size of fear, the depth of it, and it will help you recognize what you can actually start working on now. And that's the whole point, right? Living in a CEO space, remember you're a visionary, you're out there, you're doing the thing, right? You're not with your head down, you're not stuck an employee, you're not just, punching a clock. But you've got to work through these things to be that visionary self. So, let me give you some examples of like a big fear, a vague fear. Those would be like a fear of the unknown, right? Or I have a general fear of failure, let's say. So I'm afraid of making mistakes. I have a fear of failure, right? So that's kind of a bigger, vague kind of a fear, right? But what we want to do is we want to get clearer. We've got to go from the big to the small. We got to turn it into something more precise because that will lead us to the next step. So really, what we want to do is think of a more specific fear. So if you've got the big fear, let's say, okay, maybe it's a fear of looking inadequate, right? I'm an imposter, right? So then we want to say, okay, well, actually, some of that fear is about speaking on a webinar because I don't want to say like all the time. Okay, so you really want to dive in and get more specific about a vague fear. Keep going back to your list. Go through, right, and categorize each fear into vague or specific. Now, in your workbook today, it's going to walk you through this step. So don't get lost as you're taking notes, okay? When you're looking at your vague fear, what you want to be focusing on is really thinking about specificity, right? Think back to an instance maybe where you noticed that fear was present. Pinpoint a definite source of that bigger fear, right? Like a bigger fear of screwing up might have shown up when you were about to learn how to tie your shoe. And maybe that was really hard for you. Maybe you got yelled at a lot. Maybe you got shamed for that. And so now you have a fear of not doing it right the first time. So you don't do it at all because you fear screwing up. Okay. So you want to recall a time when that was going on with you, and that will help you get a little more identified with a specific kind of fear. Okay. So this is just one example of many. Your experience is going to be different from mine. Everyone else doesn't matter, but but your fears are there and everyone has them. So the lesson is to be learned to take that, turn it from a fixed mindset and a stuck mindset around to a growth mindset and CEO-ness, right? Anyone can turn their employee mindset into that one of CEO. Okay. And you might be able to quickly identify a more specific fear inside your vague fear. And if so, that's great. The key to this is to zero in on the specific thing that's provoking the most fear, because I promise that's the one that's blocking your path the most. Okay. So keep working from that. And then what we're going to do is, I call it short term, long term, because we really need to look at our fears on how we can tackle for the biggest payoff. What does this mean? Okay. So now you have a list of specific fears. You can see them laid out on paper. That's honestly half the battle. So now we're going to crack them open. We're going to see if they're really as terrible as you think they are. So you're going to go through your list, and for each fear, start asking yourself, what time frame does this have on me? What's the level of impact of this fear on my business and on my life? For example, is this a short-term fear? Right? Is this a long-term fear? Is it short-term because you're in the middle of applying for a loan and you don't really know what that means? You need that to do the next thing. Or is this a long-term because it's deeply seated, right? Is it a low impact fear or a bigger fear? So let me give you an example here. A short-term impact might be anything that will affect your business, let's say from 1 month to a year. But long-term is going to be anything longer than a year. Okay. So we definitely want to be sure that we're looking at that, working through that. Again, this is all in your workbook, and there's no right or wrong answers when we're analyzing our fear. Okay. Or even how they impact you. Acknowledgement is the key here. Acknowledge how they make you feel. Those feelings will always be true for you. So another way to think about this is to break your fears down into classifying them with a number value, right? That's not emotional, like 1 to 4. So to do this, you classify your fear by timeline. Okay. So timeliness. So the more timely a fear is, the higher it is to a 1. So let's say if managing one of your fears is managing a team of people, okay, but you only have one assistant right now and you don't have the money to hire yet. That might get a rating of a 3 or 4 because it's not that important, and it definitely isn't keeping you from, let's say, living your life and doing your business. It's not the most pressing thing that's going on to hold you back right now. Okay. But let's say that you're not posting on social media, like Megan Cola was on here. That's her jam. That's her genius. Right. And so you've got a fear of that because you don't know what to do. You don't know how to do it. You don't have the tools. You don't have the resources. You're not really sure the content. So it might be a 1 because it is affecting your business and sales. So we want to tackle that fear now, not later. Do you see how this works? This also works in personal relationships, maybe talking money with a spouse. You want to break down that fear into specifics so you know how the conversation will proceed. Okay. So we're going to classify our fears. We're going to look at short term and long term, and we're going to find out what the most pressing fear is at that point. And the reason we do that is because that's the one that we try to act on. So, what's the most pressing fear? This should be one that's marked as a 1. Okay. The big impact. And if you can find a big impact fear in a short term, that's definitely what we want to be focusing on, because we want to break down our fears with tiny but bold action. So you name it, you refine it, you find something manageable about it, and then it's time to start making actual moves towards getting over that fear. Okay. Not all action is created equal. So, one way to figure out the best action to get over your fear is to dig in deeper to the source, like knowing the category, asking yourself if you want to stay in this place, asking yourself, is this rational? What action can I take to get over this? If there's not an action step to take, maybe you need some therapy around that. So really, this is the you part of really understanding where you are and where you want to be. Okay. So if you're struggling to come up with an action, you don't have to like eat the frog, as you hear people say, when it comes to your biggest and most pressing fear. Maybe it's just a time management issue. So what you do to tackle that fear, you get a hold of your time management so that you quit procrastinating. And when you quit procrastinating, you feel like you're accomplishing something. When you feel like you're accomplishing something, suddenly you feel successful. When you feel successful, you have more confidence in that moment. When you have more confidence in that moment, you'll likely realize that whatever the task was, it wasn't as difficult and it wasn't as troubling as you made it out to be. Do you see? And then now you're ready to tackle that really hard thing. All right. So what we want to get at is a small win, right? So in the social media example, we want to write one post, not a week's worth, not a month worth, one post. Maybe we repost somebody else's something. Okay. Maybe for a week, all we do is just post a picture of ourselves and just letting you glimpse what my life looks like. Okay. So it doesn't have to be hard. As you've heard me say before, it's about making it easy. Easy, easy, easy. Okay. I've been flying through comments. How's this resonating with you? Anybody feeling this? Anybody want to share an aha at this point? Maybe where they wish they had something else. I'm going to give you just a minute to catch up with me, and I'm going to put some names in the raffle here. Anything. Okay. Now, as I said yesterday, this kind of work, it takes a lot of work, meaning that this is not a one and done. You have to be very careful and very specific. And the key to this is making sure that you're staying accountable, right? When things get hard, it's easy to just let it go. When things get hard, it's hard to stay in that moment. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure that we are living into ourselves in the way that we want to. And the best way to do that is with accountability and support. So yesterday, a couple of you texted after the fact and said, tell me again what this is about. If you've been following along on email and looking at the replays, I laid out a little bit about what the Spark Elite program is. I'll send you some more information with your workbook today. But remember, in the Spark Elite program, it really is building blocks over 6 months that really do tackle your fear. that sets you up for a sustainable self-care plan, that makes sure that your vision is aligned in how you're communicating your vision, not only to yourself and your family, but to those that you serve. We also really spend a lot of time on boundaries. That's part of that fear work. Fear shows up almost every month, right? So we create boundaries that allow us to work in our genius and how we communicate no and what we say yes to. And we really create 6 months of habit formation so that we can step into this new version of ourselves, which really is this CEO mind shift that we've been talking about over the last 4 days. If you're with us before, you remember that I gave you a special deal to join Spark. Normally is $3,000. It's a 6-month program. It's every single week, almost for 6 months. There's some high intensity group calls and some one-to-one calls with me. There's an entire toolbox of resources over 6 months to make this change. But things are hard right now, and recession's a real fear. And I want to help you step into 2023 with a lot of power and confidence and clarity. So instead of $3,000, it's $2,200, and we can set up a payment plan. And remember, when you say yes out of this work right here, you're also going to get a 3-hour lightning session with me, which is just 3 hours, you and me. Let's start your plan. Let's create your roadmap, because sometimes you can't wait for 6 months. Okay. You cannot wait for 6 months. So I love seeing this aha from Kathleen. Way to go. Yes. Thank you for this nugget. So you want to break down your fears into bite-sized pieces. It's absolutely crucial to do that. If you don't do that, you won't go very far. So it's a really important aspect of that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for noticing that. Very, very important. Okay. So that's what I have for you today. It's a little bit less than 30 minutes. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat. I'm going to do the raffle here in just a moment. I'm so glad to see you on here. Now, here's the deal. Okay, I want to be sure if you didn't already drop a comment in right now, even just say hi so that I know you're here live so I can add you to the raffle before I draw right now. So remember, you're going to have your workbook in the recap email. If you're not on the email, you're not getting those. If you'll drop a comment in and say me, I'll reach out and get your email privately. And so that's okay, Colleen. I'm glad you're here. I'm adding you too right now. Good job. And we want to be sure that you're getting the entire workbook, which really will help you create a roadmap to begin to shift your mindset towards that CEO lifestyle. Okay, so I told you I was going to do a couple of drawings today. Okay, so we're going to start the raffle. And the first gift is a $10 gift card from Amazon. And first place, Colleen. So Colleen, I'm writing it down right now. You get a $10 gift card to Amazon. Way to go, way to go. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, we are going to do it again, Let's clear the winners. Let's start a raffle. This time, what you're getting is a choice of either a 5-day goal-getting course from me or Finding Your Why course from me. This is a $247 value. You get it for free. So Jen, way to go. And I will be sure and let you know how to access that course. And we're going to do that one more time. So we'll do that one more time. And here we go. Start the raffle. One more chance to get Finding Your Why or the goal-getting class. And let's see. Oops, I didn't clear that. 1 second, please. Technology snafu. And Lori. There you go. So Lori Hunt, Lori, I will reach out to you for the same thing and make sure you've got access to that. Way to go and show up for you. I'm so excited for you. So Colleen and Jen and Lori, be on the lookout for your emails with more information from me. Here's what I know. You don't have to stay stuck. You get to choose what goes in here that translates to your actions. And it all starts with you deciding if you want to be a CEO of your life. I'm Suzanne of the Sparkle Factor. I'm glad you joined in the last couple of days. Let me know how I can support you in 2023. Happy Thanksgiving.